Shwmai a croeso cynnes, and welcome to the What's Your Story podcast. I'm James Owen, a Welsh filmmaker and storyteller, and I'm passionate about sharing stories. This podcast is all about business owners sharing their journey, and we'll be speaking with directors, entrepreneurs and creatives from all across Wales to learn from their experiences. We believe everyone has a story to tell. What's your story? Shwmai a croeso to What's Your Story, and excited to have something brewing in the studio today. I'm a huge lover of coffee, bit of an enthusiast myself, and I'd love to maybe one day just get behind a coffee machine and pull some shots, because it's something that really interests me, and I love coffee, and I'm really excited today to have in a bit of a local coffee legend from Carmarthenshire, from the black gold mining community of Coaltown itself, is Scott. Thank you for coming to share your story, Scott.
Thank you very much for having me, man.
That's all right. So black gold. It is indeed gold in the area of Ammanford, this coffee, isn't it?
It is, yeah. No, we've been very lucky. I mean, yeah, Coaltown and black gold is synonymous. You know, the mining industry in Ammanford is such a prominent part of our history and culture, and we want to try and renovate it, bring it back.
Yeah, fantastic. I love the story and the brand itself. But for those listening and watching, if you were to describe what you do and what Coaltown is in a couple of sentences, what would you say to those people?
Okay, so Coaltown is a brand built on heritage, and our purpose is to bring industry back to post-industrial mining towns, and we do that through specialty coffee. So we're a specialty coffee roastery at heart. We source and roast high-grade coffees from around the world and share them with like-minded customers around the UK and around the world.
Wow. I love that. You've worked on that, haven't you? It's great. You've refined your messaging over the years, but I think as a brand, I love it. I got introduced to Coaltown a few years ago when you started opening up the shop. It was at the time, the arcade. That was your first coffee shop, I believe, was it not?
It was, yeah. I mean, prior to that, we were set up in my parents' garage. So the business was literally a website, and the shop front, or the shop face itself, was my mum and dad's garage and the shed. So we really wanted to try and create a space where we could kind of show the brand off in its physical format, but also how that would look from a retail perspective, how we can serve customers and showcase specialty coffee in a way that necessarily hadn't been done before, you know, especially in somewhere like Ammanford.
Yeah, brilliant. And I got introduced to it through the arcade. Mate of mine, Seb, was working in the arcade, and I think back then it was when specialty coffee was growing for me as a person, liking it. I remember growing up, I didn't like drinking coffee, didn't like drinking tea. But until I started working in a call centre, I got introduced to caffeine, which I needed. And that's going back like 2016. So around about 2018, that was when I was sort of discovering specialty coffee. And now I do. I can very not often drink instant coffee. Sometimes I just have to. But I do really appreciate it. Like beer. I like good beer. I like good wine.
Yeah.
It's the same principle where you can learn and teach yourself to like good coffee. But we can talk a little bit about the successes you've had. But what is the story behind Coaltown? Like, I'm talking about the origins. You set up this business many years ago, like lots of people, in their parents' garage or shed, rent-free. Got to start somewhere. But tell me, what was that idea you had in setting up this business? Why did you start Coaltown in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, so my origin story, it started off, I mean, I was brought up in Ammanford, first of all. I'm born and raised in Ammanford. I love where I'm from. I love my community. And I went to school locally. So I went to a primary school in Llandilo, and then I went to Am Valley Comprehensive School. And throughout the time that I was in school, I struggled with dyslexia. And it was at a time where it wasn't necessarily a thing people talked about, the struggles with neurodiversion. It was just something I tried to keep to myself. But I really, really struggled. I couldn't read until I was about 7 or 8. I was very bad at handwriting or writing. School as a platform didn't really resonate with me. I wasn't a bad kid. I probably say I was on the spectrum of being very, very good.
Class clown?
No, not necessarily. No, not at all. Not at all. I tried to just be on the straight and narrow all the way through school. It just was not for me, though, you know. So I really kind of like dived into music, something that was practical, and I absolutely adored music. And that was something that I wanted to be in. It was an industry I wanted to be in after school. It was just my life at the time. And my other passion was history. So throughout school, came to my GCSEs, didn't do very well. I mean, I wasn't really in school very often, to be honest. And then, as everybody at that age, I'm sure you'd remember as well, it was like us all people, like the path was university, You go to university, you find a job, you start your career. And
I loved sports and I wanted to be a sports teacher. That was the initial, but then I ended up not being a sports teacher.
This is the thing, it's funny how life takes you in different directions, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it was, I finished school I did my GCSEs in 2010. I then begged my form teacher to let me into sixth form because that was the only way I could get into university. If I got enough points, do my A levels, try and scrape through those, get to university, find a career, And I remember begging him and saying, "Sir, please let me in." And he said, "Well, look, I'll give you a chance. If you promise you're going to actually attend school and you give it your all, I'll give you a chance." I lasted 3 months in sixth form before leaving. I couldn't cope with being in that environment anymore. And I was out of work, couldn't find a job. So no qualifications, no job. Ended up working for the National Trust, where my other passion kind of kicked in. History, absolutely loved it. But something changed. This kind of like fire in my belly developed. And the way that the voluntary kind of like element of where I was working in the National Trust, they were a team of young people, not much older than myself, but they felt like they were a lot older. They were in their early 20s. I was like 17, 18. And the way in which we worked together, it was really exciting. They gave me a lot of freedom and they let me host events. So I was basically an events assistant, but I could come up with ideas. I could come up with a business plan and I could execute them. I'd have a budget. I could do what I wanted to do. I was able to speak on the radio on behalf of the property. I was doing all these things that you don't really do, when you're in school. And everything you were doing mattered. It had a direct response. You did something for a reason. Whereas in school, you do it for theory. You're doing it because it's a piece of paper. You have to just do a task and then you complete it, you get marked, and then you do another one. Whereas when you work in somewhere, you're doing it for a reason, there was a result. And this just kind of spiraled. I ended up getting a permanent job there as a house steward doing tours. I started hosting more events and I just blinking loved it.
You were a tour guide.
I was a tour guide and I loved it. And that was what I thought my career was going to be. I wanted to be working for the National Trust as, I wanted to keep my career going that trajectory. And then an opportunity was offered to me to become a teaching assistant in a school. And I thought I might give that a go. I did. And I realized the school environment just really, really was not for me. Could be even on the other side, do you know what I mean?
Wow.
Really wasn't for me at all. And that's where that kind of hunger came back, that fire in my belly came back, and I wanted to set up my own business. Now, you'd say coffee is an odd one, but I was brought up in a coffee shop. So my parents had set up their own business, and that's where the entrepreneurialism kind of really kicked in, I think, because they weren't afraid to give things a go. Whereas I think there's a boundary, there's a barrier to a lot of people where, you maybe the people around you say like, oh, it's a bit risky. And let's be honest, it is. It's really, really, really risky. And it's scary. But my parents were very kind of, they liked the idea of, giving things a go. And, it's one of those things where you regret if you don't, if you know what I mean. It's one of those things you'd almost have to live with that regret for the rest of your life if you say you didn't give it a shot. So they were very, very much like, go for it. Do what you want to do. And the thing is, my parents had set up this coffee shop when I was in school. And I, I'll be honest, through school, I was like, I'm just gonna work there. I'm just gonna run that. But they sold it. They sold it when I was in school. So I was like, oh, that's my plan's gone. That's my career out the window. So yeah, that's where I ended up this job as a teaching assistant. And coffee was just something that was in my life from a very young age, visiting coffee roasteries, which I thought was pretty normal. People didn't see that kind of side of coffee, in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. It was something that wasn't as explored or necessarily, the supply chain wasn't as necessarily as well known as what it is now.
Yeah.
So coffee was something I was passionate about, but not necessarily opening a cafe at the time. It was more supplying coffee shops was kind of the direction I wanted to go into.
Because surely growing up I think it's a trend now, isn't it? Like coffee is absolutely like other things, gin, rums, vodkas. We've had all these things that have just popped out of nowhere. I hope it's not going to be this fad phase, because I mean coffee's been around for a very, very long time. But how you grew up in that world of coffee probably looks very different to how it looks now.
Oh, yeah. Like, I mean, it's chalk and cheese. It's completely different to what it used to be. Like, my parents, when they opened their cafe, it was the only shop in Ammanford at the time that had an espresso machine. So, it's completely different to what we see today. And if anything, their shop was, a delicatessen and cafe. So it was tied in with Italian roasted coffees. It had that kind of like traditional Italian aesthetic and experience. And this is when Costa was like in its early phases of growth. It was very different to what we see and expect from a coffee shop today. But that's the beauty of this industry. You talk about gin and alcohol and all of the things where we've seen these phases of trend. They come and go, but it's weird about coffee, because coffee almost like it metamorphosizes all of the time. It changes its image and aesthetic all of the time, and it's just like effortlessly cool. Like it's just a cool thing, and its ability to be able to transform as trends change shows how it's got this staying power. But also it's addictive. It has got caffeine in it, which is it's an addictive compound. So it's one of those things where I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's one of those things that's here to stay, and if anything, it's just going to become more and more refined.
There was one year during Lent, I actually gave up coffee for the whole of Lent, and I managed it.
Blinking it. You managed that?
I managed it. And I'd often have like 6 or 7 cups a day.
That's impressive, to be fair. I think I'd be able to last maybe a day.
No, it was. I was quite proud of myself, and then I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll have a cup." And Rachel actually gave me a flat white on the day Lent broke, and it tasted so good.
I bet. I absolutely bet.
I don't know what blend it was or what coffee it was, but it was bloody nice.
That's awesome.
So you had this sort of this aspiration to do something in coffee.
Yep.
Supply coffee shops maybe. So what was that first iteration of that business then?
Oh, wow. I mean, I was 18, 19 at the time. And this is the thing about business is, and this is again, the beauty of it, and harks back to that message we're saying about the National Trust. Whatever you do has an impact, yeah? You may not be an expert at it or ever have done that thing before, but you have to give it a go. And the results of it, reaps a yield, I had never created a brand before, and I had never even looked at branding or realized how important it is, or realized how important an aesthetic or a style or whatever was. That wasn't me, So when I started with coffee, I went very much for very thick, laid on thick Americana, vintage Americana from the 1950s, because to me that was awesome back when you're 19, 18, 19. And the first company that I started in coffee was a company called Roasted Joe's. It had a very American style logo. The money that I'd saved up from working and living at home, I decided to spend on a 1950s American truck, which I thought would be a fantastic marketing vehicle to go around selling the brand. It wasn't. It could travel about 3 miles from the house before breaking down. It was absolutely horrendous. And I spent the rest of the money on packaging, awful looking packaging. That was postbox friendly, very ahead of its time.
Yeah.
To be able to hold 4 50-gram sachets of coffee, because the whole purpose of Roasted Joe's was to be able to showcase 4 different coffees from around the world every month to subscribers online. So instantly, it was not designed for supplying coffee shops. Yeah. It was designed for home users. Direct to consumer. And I remember setting up a website on Shopify in Shopify's early days, and spending about 6 months on the template and getting it looking really beautiful and ticking all the boxes I wanted to tick to try and get it, as good as my competitors in the industry had at the time. I remember going live. Here we go, pressing the button. The orders are coming in. Press the button. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Wow.
And I had 10,000 of these boxes that I'd bought downstairs in my parents' lounge, dividing the family. And I promised them it'd be gone in 6 months. And they were there for about 3 years. and it was awful. But it was my first stab at it, and I always am grateful for that first stab, because I think I learned everything that you do wrong by creating that business. Even though it was in the product I wanted to start a business in, it was still everything, don't do that again.
So Roasted Joe's, I think it's fair to say that failed.
Yeah, I mean, weirdly, it didn't fail, because Roasted Joe's is actually the same limited company as Coaltown. It just changed into what we have today.
Yeah.
It was the first iteration that lasted about 3 months, as a brand. And it just wasn't me. I don't know how to explain it, but something resonated with me. Something a founder of another brand said to me. It has to be a yes. And that yes has to be a real yes in your brain than a yeah. And Roasted Joe's was a yeah, Whereas Coaltown was an absolute yes. It just was everything. It resonated with me as a person. It felt like it had a purpose, which, the whole reason it is what it is today is because of that purpose.
Yeah.
And it resonated with my upbringing and the town that I'm from. And it wasn't just selling coffee. It was now like a movement. It was something for us to get behind. And that, Roasted Joe's was just a funky American logo. Coaltown was more of like we're doing this because we are trying to prove a point.
Yeah, no, it's great. But regardless of it being the same business, I think the point was more that you had a go at something, it didn't work. Yeah. What did you learn? Because from that lesson came Coaltown.
Yes.
Because maybe if you established Coaltown as itself from the off, it might have just completely failed. But you've had that attitude of, okay, what am I going to learn from this experience? Okay, the branding wasn't right. It didn't hit the mark, because the actual idea of selling coffee direct to consumers, that's a booming market.
It is now,
so that works. So, what you were trying to do was right in a sense, but the big lesson was the branding. And now I think that to me, and I drink a lot of coffee and I taste lots of different coffees, but Coaltown for me has to be, if not one of the biggest coffee brands in Wales. I think so.
I think a lot of that was the timing as well. I mean, when I started Roasted Joe's, it was like 2013. The coffee was getting there. It was definitely on the up. But I don't think people knew what we were trying to say. The coffee industry didn't know what we were, at the time. And it's all messaging. Like the industry we talk about specialty. Back then, speciality coffee was the difference between an instant coffee and a latte. And a lot of people didn't know what a latte was. It's very complex. Like the word and the messaging is very different. Like specialty coffee is very different from commodity coffee. But trying to explain that to a consumer who thinks they already know what coffee is really hard. So you almost need the whole kind of audience to mature and understand the product more. Like people understand wine more than what they did 30 years ago today. It's like you just got to give it that breathing space. And the branding for Roasted Joe's was very thick on the Americana and very thick on that overall kind of like it tainted what we were trying to buy, in my opinion. It wasn't really like talking about the coffee too much. And I spent months on that brand. I spent about 6 months of tweaking it and trying to get it to be something I liked. I just didn't like it. No matter what I was doing, I just wasn't happy with it. And obviously I didn't have the technical skills to be able to deliver it either. I was using like a knockoff version of Photoshop that I'd never used before, and I was still learning how to use the tools to make the stuff. Do you know what I mean? So it was just like the whole thing was a learning curve. But Coaltown as a brand came over a weekend.
Wow,
2 days. It was built out of necessity. I didn't have any money, so I couldn't buy 10,000 boxes and 10,000 bags again. I couldn't buy another American truck to take me around the local area. I couldn't, do you know what I mean? All of that money had been spent on Roasted Joe's.
Yeah,
so when Coaltown came about, it was built out of like, how can I make a packaging that was practical, that could be easily replicated and can still deliver the brand's message? The name came from a family member had passed away, and we opened the photo albums, and a photograph of my great-grandfather fell out, an old thumbnail image of him and his mates, which I took a photo of on my iPhone 5. And that has been used on all of our bags up until 2019 with a picture of him on the back. And it was just this image of camaraderie, this golden era of our locality. The idea that there was an industry there and it was the biggest industry in the world. And that industry's gone, and the town is now left with a post-industrial kind of the past. This golden era is gone, and we're left in this world where industry isn't quite as easy for the people who live there now. The people who are looking for success typically move away. And what I wanted to try and do with Coaltown is we can do something from here, and we can create a successful brand, and we can do it from anywhere in the world because the internet. And let's bring people to Ammanford, because Ammanford's the best place in the world to me, and it's beautiful. So why do we have to go to cities to experience specialty coffee and culture when you can have just as much culture from here?
Yeah.
And it was a very, at the time, you look back, naive 19-year-old, let's take on the world. But I still have that energy for it today. And I think we're on a mission. We're doing it, It started off in my parents' garage. The packaging was made a necessity. It was themed on miners' lamp checks from some, the old lamps they used to take underground. And slowly the confidence was being built as the business started to grow. And we've taken those steps to where we are today.
Inspired by your grandfather?
Inspired by my great-granddad, yeah, Ben.
Your great-granddad,
yeah.
Ben?
Who moved to Ammanford, may I add, from Hereford to work in the mines. It was the place people were moving to get opportunity. So it was like, let's bring that back.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you've used the community, the people of Ammanford as an idea to create this brand, because and that's what I love about it. I think what you've done a fantastic job over the years in building that, because, when you look at the packaging, and I know you're going through a process of refining that now, but you've now since got, a few shops. You've got the Roastery itself, your flagship shop. You can feel the brand when you're in these places. You can touch it when you're looking at the packaging. It's it's fantastic, but it's a story built on the community. It's built on Ammanford. It's not a quirky name you've come up with. Hardlines. I'm just picking that up. I don't know what the origins are they, but is that just like a quirky? I know as a brand they're quite quirky, but for you it's more. Coaltown is actually the town. So, and you're proud of your roots and your history, which I love. And like many post-industrial towns in Wales, they're struggling. Llanelli, it's struggling. I love this town, but there's so much good, but there's so much work to do because industry is gone. Industry's never coming back. And for us in our communities, we've got to do what we can to try and bring people back to talk about and shout about the places that they love. They should be proud of where they live. And thanks to the internet, thanks to COVID, you can work anywhere in the world.
Exactly.
Because of COVID, we've now transformed the way we work. I still think there's a place to have offices and people work in their own space, but the opportunities, you can, in your own bedroom, design a brand, create a website and start making and selling coffee. You could do that in your very own bedroom, isn't it?
Exactly. And that's kind of the message. Like, especially when you're younger. Do you know what I mean? When you're just leaving school, there's no risk. Do you know what I mean? What are you going to lose? You're not going to lose anything.
Yeah.
Only a bit of time, And if anything, that time's more valuable in what you learn. And I was very fortunate in the fact that we built that brand. I mean, the brand took off. At the time, we were buying coffee with Roaster Joe's from other roasteries and packaging it up and selling it online. Coaltown, I wanted to sell to cafes, and I wanted to build this movement behind it. But the big part of that was we wanted to roast our own coffee. And I couldn't afford a coffee roaster. The thousands and thousands of pounds. I didn't know how to roast coffee, first of all. So it was all of it was learning. But that year, that Christmas, me and my dad built our first coffee roaster. And we built it from parts from a Ford KA and a barbecue. And we fully understood the process of roasting coffee, airflow, drum speed, temperature. And because we manufactured our own machine, do you mean? From the inside out. And on top of that, if I'm honest with you, I think it was a lot more technically advanced than a lot of coffee roasters at the time. Do you know what I mean? It had more thermocouples and more speed rotations we could have on the drum. We could change it 2 different directions on the drum, I don't think many roasters have that. It was just a really cool piece of kit that allowed us to roast like 4 kilos of coffee every
And
15
are you
minutes.
and your dad, are any of you engineers or mechanics?
So I'm lucky my dad is a design engineer. That was his trade when he was growing up. So when he was in his career, he worked for a few car brands as a design engineer. And he's a very, very intelligent guy who's very, very practical. Everything that I'm not. So he's able to do the things that I couldn't. So he made me this coffee roaster, and absolutely bizarrely, and through sheer luck more than talent, our first batch of coffee that we roasted, we put into the UK Great Taste Awards and won 2 gold stars.
Wow.
So instantly, Black Gold had almost a credibility to it before we sold any. So it was a pretty good start, you know. A lot of things fell into place.
Black Gold, I remember drinking lots of it when I was doing my film degree. I'd often go up to the roastery. I'd go to the arcade. Spent many a time there where I had a looming deadline to finish an essay. I used to drink it like water. And sadly for me, when you drink something a lot, and a lot of it, it wears off that taste.
Yeah.
So like the Black Gold... it doesn't cut it for me. I got a bit bored of it. But that's because I think when you're growing up, you try different things here and there. So whenever I go in, I'll have a good vibes.
Yeah.
Or I'll have... what did I have for the cup in the other day? It was one of the new seasonal blends you've got. I mean, you've got lots of them, haven't you?
Yeah.
Lots of different blends.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about coffee is, you can try different things all the time, can't you?
Exactly. And that's the thing, Black Gold is a coffee. The idea behind it is it's the staple. It's the one that you drink every day. Yeah. It's the thing that's going to give, we're talking about trying to bring back an industry. It's the thing that gives you that volume that we want in every home. Do you mean? I'd like to see Black Gold in every household in the UK. That's my ambition. I want it to be seen as the day-to-day coffee that people drink from South Wales, you know?
Yeah.
And it's very chocolatey. It's very much a better version of what you're used to, you know?
It's a traditional type of taste, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. And then across the range then we have about 8 single origin coffees which come from single origin producers, where we showcase the story of that producer and the origin of that coffee, the process or the variety. And some of those varieties are rare, some of those varieties are more common. But those are the coffees we showcase from single origin producers, and the flavor profiles vary. And then we got the house coffees, the house range, which includes Black Gold, which are your day-to-day drinkers, but they all serve a purpose. So you've got Candlelight, which is your more developed roast profile, something that's a bit more traditional. Then you've got Black Gold, it's a bit lighter, but it's more your traditional flavor profile, chocolatey, nutty, moreish. Then we got Union, which is a house filter coffee. We have Anthracite, which is a naturally processed single origin coffee from Uganda. So it gives you that fruitiness,
That's a nice one.
uniqueness, but it's also consistent. We know what you're going to get with Anthracite. We have Drift, which is a half caffeinated, half decaf coffee, which allows you to meander through your day with not too much caffeine.
Nice.
And then we have Jenkin Jones, which is your decaf. And
Jenkin Jones.
Jenkin Jones.
Is that inspired by somebody in Ammanford?
It's inspired by a guy from Gleneath who was a mining engineer who was headhunted to move out to Pennsylvania. And there's a town named after him in the US.
Never.
Which is a mining town. And they mined gold. And he was just a man from Gleneath who ended up moving out and setting up this entire community in Pennsylvania in the early 1800s. And
Unbelievable.
It's just another story of like the entrepreneurship and intuity of people from our part of the world. And we talk about it enough. So
what a bloody cool story.
he's a cool guy.
He's a cool guy. Jenkin Jones. Fantastic.
So yeah, that's our house range. And then we have the seasonal coffees like Good Vibes, Bloom,
Bloom.
Embers.
That's the one I was thinking of.
It's the idea we want to try and bring a seasonality to it. It's the same as our single origin coffees. They have that same origin story. But as we're trying to communicate the message of coffee to customers, it's some people don't understand coffee the same way as you and me. And, you know, they know a name. They know last year they had Bloom and it was really floral and fruity and delicious. This year, they know it's going to be the same. So it's the idea of bringing in that seasonality and kind of theming a coffee around a name and a feeling rather than going into the origin story of the producer, even though it's the same kind of like coffee.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, the one to cap it all off, more of a passion project for me and Josh, the director of coffee, we have the Unearthed Series, which are the highest scoring coffees in the world that are absolutely ridiculous in terms of flavour profile and price point. But they are the crown jewel in terms of what we can expect from coffee and how good coffee could be. But it's not a day-to-day drinker. These are coffees that are really, really wild and different, and they're more experiential. But they allow us to showcase some really, really cool wild stuff.
Have you got any of those in the pipeline at the moment?
So we got Unearthed Volume 1, which was released around December last year. And we're about to release Volume 2 closer to the end of the year this year.
Sounds like a record.
It does, yeah. Which we're curating this collection of Unearthed Series coffees where we hold on to these stories from these producers because they're really special.
Yeah.
So it's really cool.
It's a Penderin style of marketing.
Yes, absolutely.
So on paper, how long has Coaltown been going as a business?
How old am I now? I'm 32. So since I was 19. So yeah, about 11, 12 years.
Wow, fantastic. So looking back, you started this business from very small, humble beginnings, spending all your money on something that didn't work. You learned some lessons. And tell me about today. What does Coaltown look like today as a business? Lots of people work in this business. You've got lots of shops. You're a B Corp. Tell me, how has this business transformed into what it is today?
So, we've gone from my parents' garage. We've gone from no rent, a small team. It was just me, first of all, packing, marketing, selling, shipping, everything, to a team at the original office space, a really tight, close team of 4 of us back in the day. And then we took on this building in Ammanford, which was a derelict shed that we collaborated with a local construction company, TRJ. And we wanted to bring this forward-thinking roastery. We wanted to open a building that was different to what you'd expect in coffee. It was all of a sudden a experiential building. We had the roastery and a cafe in one space. We tested the water by opening that cafe in the arcade, showcasing coffee slightly differently using La Marzocco machines, having manual brew pour over coffees, having a menu which had a rotating seasonal offering as well as a house coffee on offering.
Pizza oven.
And then in the roastery had a pizza oven, we had food.
My favourite.
It was absolutely brilliant. Like the idea behind the roastery was to bring a community space, but also bring the manufacturing of coffee into the public eye. Like visiting a coffee roastery no longer was something special. It was something that was just like a normal thing. And these kind of spaces weren't really seen outside of America. And it was something I really wanted to develop as a brand. Coaltown, I didn't want it to just be, supplying coffee to cafes anymore. I wanted it to be a brand that you brought into your home. You had it in your kitchen, you had it in the local cafe, but you also could visit a Coaltown espresso bar. And our first foray to that was the arcade coffee shop, the roastery. We've since opened one in Ponta de Lais, which is our first expansion store outside of Ammanford.
It's a lovely space there.
Oh, thank you. Our idea is we want to open more of those and in post-industrial towns. So, outside of Ammanford, more ex-mining communities, employing more people in these towns and sending that message out that, we can build these brands in our homes.
Yeah.
So as a business, it changed a lot during COVID. As you can imagine, the majority of what we did was obviously our cafes, getting people through the door, serving them coffee. And then the other part of our business that was the biggest thing was supplying cafes that were also closed. So we pivoted more to online and creating a community of coffee drinkers online. A lot of education, a lot of Instagram live videos and teaching people how to brew at home. And that maturity in the coffee industry, like I was telling you about, like people understand coffee a lot more now. Everybody has a home espresso machine all of a sudden. I was trying to teach people how to be your local barista in your kitchen, how you can extract coffees the same way as you did in the local cafe. How can I get this amazing experience, but just do it at home? And it just grew this audience. We managed to build a dedicated online community of 20,000 people who were buying regularly. And we grew a subscription base. And all of a sudden, the business no longer was just a wholesale business or just a coffee shop experience. It was more of an online direct-to-consumer business. Exactly what I wanted Roasted Joe's to be, that it wasn't.
Yeah.
So it's become what we are today. It's changed into something very, very, very different to what we originally started.
This podcast is all about telling stories. We've got to hear a little bit about Jenkins Jones, your great-grandfather. I always ask this on the podcast. whose story has really inspired you, and you've never really had that opportunity to listen to that story. If you could sit in front of somebody right now, that could be somebody who isn't here anymore, somebody fictional. Scott, whose story would you love to listen to?
Oh, that's a really good question, because I've been really fortunate to meet the people who inspired me, and I've heard their stories. Somebody who isn't with us anymore. That's a tough one, to be honest, James. That's a really tough one. I'm going to say...
It could be another roastery, who knows?
That's tough. Can we cut to the ads?
Today's podcast sponsored by Good Vibes.
I mean, I've been really lucky and inspired by some really inspirational local Welsh businesses. One of them is Hyatt Denim, based in Cardigan. Absolutely phenomenal brand. Another one is Toast. If you've heard of the clothing brand Toast, they originated in Llandilo, and they're a global brand. It's this, I'd love to... It's difficult, man.
Well, there's some. I mean, the denim brand, that's massive, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's got a hell of a story.
And this is the thing. It's like, I just love brands that punch above their weight.
He's the Do Lectures guy, isn't he?
Yes. Yeah.
Have you met him?
Yes. Yeah. A few times. Yeah. I just love brands that punch above their weight. Do something radically different, and really make the place that you're from somewhere people want to go to. Do you know what I mean? And they've all done that. And they've been champions of their local area where they're from, but doing it in such a subtle way, not stamping dragons and daffodils and everything. Like, just being authentically themselves and authentically cool, and creating this amazing following from where they're home, Yeah. And I just love that. I think anybody that does that has an inspirational story, and I'd love to hear it.
Great. I think there's something about coffee itself. I don't know what it is about it, but like, you can go and meet a friend and have a beer together. You can also go meet a friend and have a coffee. And there's something about sitting down and hearing somebody's story, listening to a story, telling somebody a story. There's just something about going to grab a coffee that's powerful in a way that maybe you're going through a tough time and you just need to grab a coffee with someone and unload, whatever that may be. But there's a power in when two or three or many people meet around a table and drink a coffee. I mean, you could obviously apply that to tea and anything else, but I think there's something about, do you want to grab a coffee? Or maybe it's a business interest, and let's grab a coffee. Yeah. But there's something powerful about when you sit down and you sipping a nice hot drink, and you can just get to know someone. And I love that. That's what Coaltown does. Is building on stories that are already out there, and also giving people the opportunity to expand and write their own story in that experience of drinking, whether that's in a coffee shop or that's drinking at home. Because of course you could invite a friend over to your own home to drink a coffee. Scott, I've loved listening to this, and if anyone out there loves coffee, maybe wants to know more about coffee, where can they find Coaltown and learn more about your coffee?
We can head to the website at www.coaltowncoffee.co.uk, or you can visit one of our many espresso bars or wholesale customers.
And this podcast is going to go out in 2025. You've got about 20 shops now, I believe, have you?
We supply about 300 cafes across the UK. We have 2 of our own branded cafes, and you can obviously just buy online. We can ship it to your door.
Fantastic. And I really appreciate you coming on. And for those that don't know, a couple of weeks ago, myself and Scott were invited to an assessment of the local authority, Carmarthenshire County Council. But for me, to be rubbing shoulders, sitting next to a business like yourself, like Castell Howell, it was a really privilege, because I think you've done something incredible to build this business, this brand, a family business. And it's great to see that you can be proud about the area you've come from and what you're doing in Ammanford. I hope and pray that people of this community in Llanelli, where I live, can have just a little bit of that passion for their own town. And hopefully we can bring back a hope and a prosperity into a community like Llanelli. Industry is gone. but people are still here. We can still work, love and play the areas we live in, and I just love what you've done for Ammanford, and long may that continue. And yeah, thank you for coming on to share a little snippet about the Coaltown story. So diolch, Scott. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, diolch. Thank you.